What if you were able to sit down for lunch with some of the greatest leaders in the world? What would you ask? What would they say? Welcome to the Linch with a Leader podcast, where you're invited to join us in learning the spiritual principles behind big success. Here's your host, Mike Linch.
Welcome to 2025, and it is such an honor that you have joined Linch with a Leader to kick off your new year. If I've never met you before, my name is Mike, and it is my honor to be on this leadership journey with you, as we're all seeking to be the leaders that we were created to be in the spaces and places that God has put us. Well, today we get to kick off 2025 with episode 225, and I can't think of a better guest to kick off the year with. The first time I had him on, I had met him. He was an acquaintance. I would now call him a friend, and I would even go so far as to say he's a dear friend. His name is Coach Keith Madison. He's the legendary baseball coach at the University of Kentucky, Hall of Famer in every category, in every Hall of Fame that you can get into in baseball on the collegiate level. And I'm telling you, you'll find out shortly why he's a Hall of Famer. Every Monday, he's a part of our Scouts Coaches Bible study. And when he speaks, if you remember the old E.F. Hutton commercials, everybody listens. That's Coach Keith Madison. And he has a brand new book out called Coaching with Purpose. In fact, all of you that were just at ABCA in baseball received a copy of that. And I'm telling you, it is a game-changing book. There's a difference between just coaching or just leading and doing it with purpose. Today's episode is full of wisdom, it's full of nuggets, and it's full of stuff that will make you a better leader in the space and place that God has put you. So I don't know where you're listening from today, but I want you to do me a favor. I want you to grab something to write on, grab something to type on, and I want you to listen up, because today is one that's going to make you better, and it's going to stretch you, it's going to grow you, and it's going to help you be the leader that God created to be. So, wherever you're at, I want you to lean in and listen to my conversation with head coach Keith Madison. Well, Coach Madison, thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Linch with a Leader. It's great to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's, I've since the last time we did this, I feel like I've really got to know you better. And the Monday morning Bible studies that you lead with almost 100 or maybe sometimes over 100 professional scouts and coaches on that Zoom call, it's been a blast. It's been a big part of my week every week.
It's so funny to think back the last time I had you on. I really didn't know you that well. I'd met you in Tuscaloosa, and we'd briefly gotten to know each other. And it's so interesting. We see each other on these little squares every Monday, but yet I feel like I know you probably way better than I do. And what I know about you is this, and anybody listening in today that remembers the E.F. Hutton commercials, when E.F. Hutton would speak, everybody would listen. When Coach Madison speaks on Mondays, people listen. What does it feel like to be at the stage of your life that you're able to reflect back, Coach, on your journey and feel like maybe I can provide some nuggets that can help some people along their way?
Well, Mike, it's the gray hair and the gray beard. It's, but no, I just to be totally transparent, I feel like God has sort of exposed some of the mistakes that I made early in my career and helped me grow through those as the years progressed. And, and it didn't necessarily mean that I was winning more games. It just means that I was connecting better, having a deeper relationship with my assistant coaches and with my team. And I just see, looking in the rearview mirror, where God helped me grow through those mistakes, through those disappointments, through the wins and the losses. and all the things that come with coaching. And if you really follow Jesus, he's going to help you. You know, I tell coaches all the time, if you pray for your players and you pray for your coaching staff and you pray for your players' parents, you're going to have a successful year. You may not win the state championship or you may not win an NCAA regional, but you're going to have a good year because you're going to have the peace of Christ.
What changes about, and that's a great perspective before we dive in the book, what changes about you as a coach, as a leader, when you begin to pray for your players and pray for their parents? And man, listen, and a lot of you that are listening in today, you're in the business world and you don't deal with people's parents. Coaches have hotlines to kids' parents. And
Yeah.
and it's not always a good hotline that they've got. What changes about you as a leader when you begin to do that?
Yeah, but Mike, you know, those CEOs and those people in management leadership, they deal with boards and
That's right.
and all that. What changes for me is that I see that player, I see that parent, I see that assistant coach differently. I see them a little bit more like God sees them instead of just the way my moody self sees them. And so if you pray for people, it helps you to connect with them.
That's good.
It helps you to sort of get into their inner being a little more, to see what makes them tick and to see what motivates them and why they seem like they're maybe not 100% for you. Maybe they're not fully on the team yet. It helps you to find out why. And so it's been a great thing for me. And I still remember a parent calling me one day. It was a mother, and she said, you know, I've never called you before, and I've never done anything like this, but she said God was speaking to my heart and telling me that I need to call you and tell you to walk around the baseball field and stop at each position and pray for the players that play that position. First of all, what an incredible thing for a to say. She wasn't talking about her son.
Yep.
He was talking about the team. And I did that. And the grounds crew probably wondered what the heck I was doing walking around the field like that. But it was impactful. I mean, it was, you know, you have these players come to your mind and to your heart, and then you see them differently, and it makes you coach with more empathy. Instead of coaching with ultimatum, you're coaching with empathy, and it's a whole different ballgame.
You know, you've got a brand new book out called Coaching with Purpose, and you and I were talking before we went on, and it's fabulous. And it really does need to be in the hand of anybody who straps on a whistle, puts on a pair of cleats, walks in a dugout, walks on a court, walks on a sideline. It is a must read, because you're able to reflect back on a lot of years of coaching to establish some lessons that you've learned about how to do it with a bigger purpose. And you share a verse in there, and I think it's a verse every coach needs to put on their windshield, put on their mirror. And it's where Paul said, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up. How many times in the journey when you were a head coach at the University of Kentucky did you go, I think I'm done. I think I'm going to be done. I'm ready to quit. How much did that happen to you, and how glad are you that you didn't?
Well, it happened probably 4 or 5 times, to be honest with you. And as a matter of fact, I may tell this story in the book. I can't quite remember right now, but I remember being at Mississippi State, and we were having a decent year. We had just come off a series win at LSU, and they were ranked in the top top 10 for sure, maybe even top 5. But for some reason, I was discouraged. It was like I was experiencing a little bit of burnout because of the travel and and some of the players I felt like were underachieving, and I always wore that. I always felt like that was my fault if they were underachieving. And I remember my brother came down from Chattanooga to Starkville to watch us, and we went out for a walk one morning. And I said, Tom, I think this might be it for me. I feel like I'm just whipped. He said, oh, you guys are playing well. I said, yeah, we're playing well, but I don't seem to be enjoying it as much. And I remember him telling me this. He said, you have never been a quitter. You need to push through this, and you're gonna really find that joy and the fun of competing, and then you got a good club, so you're gonna find the joy of winning. And it just encouraged me. It's amazing how sometimes God puts people in our lives at the right time that just gets us over that hump.
That's right.
And that's what my brother did for me. And that happened 3 or 4 times in my career. But it's easy to quit. It's easy. It's hard to push through, especially when you've got injuries on your team or people are maybe leaving your program or whatever. It's easy just to throw in the towel. But the right thing to do is to wait for God to tell you when to leave and
That's
when
right.
and fight through it. I mean, if you're a coach or a pastor or a CEO, you're a competitive person. You want to do things the right way. You want to excel, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to excel. That's a good thing.
That's right.
I believe God wants our best. So I would say just don't be discouraged. But in that verse that you brought up, I think a lot of times people sort of turn that verse off when it starts talking about continue doing good.
Yeah.
Because not many of us, I don't feel like I'm doing good.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, sometimes I feel like I'm doing bad. But I think, to me, what that says is keep on following Jesus.
Yep.
You're gonna fall. You're even going to scrape your knees sometimes, but then you're going to get back up and you're going to get closer to Him and follow Him, and then you might fall on your knees again sometime. But just keep on keeping on.
You come out of the gate swinging in the book, and sometimes we get a lot of books into this podcast, and sometimes it takes a little bit to get into the book before something grabs you. You grabbed me right out of the gate when you made a statement right at the beginning of the book. We coach players, not a game. That is a powerful statement. Number one, why is that true? Number two, how long did it take you to learn that?
Oh, it took me too long to learn that. And I, looking back, I mean, the first team I coached at Kentucky, during the season, I was 27, but when I took the reins of the team, I was only 26. And we had fun. We had a great time. I was, my first baseman was only 3 years younger than me. And these guys were just hungry to win. They had broken the school record for losses the year before. And in this first year, we broke the school record for wins. And it was because of the energy.
Yeah.
And just the excitement. These guys wanted to turn it around. But I think that's when I started discovering that you coach the players. You can talk to any baseball coach, no matter what their background, and they're going to tell you that they love the game. We all love the game. It's a great game. But you have to love the players who play the game, because those are the guys you coach.
Yeah.
Those are the guys you need to connect with. Those are the guys that need your energy, that need your positivity, that need your knowledge. And so if we, it's great to learn and grow. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even coaching anymore. And when I go to a baseball clinic, I'm still taking notes. I'm going, wow, man, that's a unique way to defend runners on first and second with no outs. I'm still, those things still intrigue me, but there's more knowledge than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go to YouTube, you can Google, you just have access to so much knowledge, but coaches aren't enjoying coaching any more than they did back when I first started in 1976.
That's right.
So the joy and the fulfillment comes when you connect with a player and you help him to become a better baseball player and a better person, and someone who's gonna go out as an adult and be a better husband, a better father, a better citizen. That's when it really becomes rewarding, very rewarding. There's not a week goes by that I don't get a phone call from a former player.
Mm-hmm.
And it brightens my day every time I hear from those guys. And that's what it means to coach the player, not just the game.
And so you make a statement even in that chapter at the beginning, really at the beginning of the book, when you said every player is going to struggle with the game holding them more than them holding the game. And I remember something Atlanta Falcon guy told me years ago. He said, everybody's going to be told to hang up their cleats at some point. Now, they may be 30, they may be 15. We all hang up our cleats. When you coach the player and love the player for the day that day is going to come for them, what are you hoping that every player left you with when they hung up the game of baseball? And that baseball is holding on to them. I struggled with it. You struggled with it. I mean, baseball was hard to let go of, man, and it had to be ripped out of my hands. I didn't do it willingly. It was just taken away. What do you hope every player, when they look back on their time with Coach Madison, what do you hope they say about that time that they got from you?
I hope they say, man, I really love my teammates. And I really respected what Coach Madison tried to teach me. And I really am thankful that he gave me an opportunity to learn about Jesus Christ. And that's a tough thing in a place like the University of Kentucky or the University of Georgia or Ohio State or any secular school. But there's ways to do it. And first of all, one way to do it is to be bold and let people know where you stand. And then just your character. You know, people are going to, I think this is a Maxwell quote. People buy into the leader.
That's right.
Before they buy into your vision. And if I don't connect with those guys, and if they don't know who I am, and if I don't find out who they are, there's not going to be much buying in. So, they're going to buy into you. So what does that mean? That means that every coach should go above and beyond to get to know their players on a real level, not just whether they have good hands or whether they have a great tight spin on their slider or whether they can go the other way with a bat. There's more to getting to know a player. I had a player one time, Mike, he was a tremendous athlete. I mean, if you looked at him, you would say that's a big league body right there. And this guy had power. He had all the tools, but even in an inter squad game, in a pressure situation, he would go to the dugout and hyperventilate. It's like, man, what is going on with this guy? This guy looks like Adonis. And he hit 2 home runs in air squad one day. And when he passed me going to the clubhouse after practice, he said, Coach, I really sucked today. I said, what? I never hit 2 home runs in one game in my life. What are you talking about? He said, well, I took a call third strike. Well, yeah, but let's look at the big picture.
Yeah.
And so, just getting to know people at a real and personal level and meeting with those guys one-on-one.
Yep.
And maybe it's hitting fungos after practice and in between, catching 20 ground balls, you say, hey, how's your family doing, man? I haven't asked about them in a while. Give me a rundown. And instead of just saying, hey, how you doing? And expecting the answer, I'm doing great, Coach. really dig in and say, maybe, hey, your little sister out here, she's a good athlete. She's playing volleyball. How's she doing? And just let them know that you really, really care.
You talk about vision. I'm so glad you hit that. Every leader has to have a vision that drives them to where they're going, and then you got to get the buy-in. When you showed up at Kentucky, so we watched College World Series last year. We've seen the regionals at Kentucky. It's this beautiful monstrosity now of a stadium, great facilities, gorgeous field. That's not what Kentucky was when you got there. Paint a picture like you do in the book of what Kentucky was when the 26-year-old phenom coach Keith Madison showed up to build a world-class SEC program. Give us a little picture of what was going on back then.
Well, first of all, there were 10 teams in the league then, and there were 9 teams that had better facilities, 9 teams that paid their coaches full-time salaries. And Kentucky was at rock bottom in those kinds of things. We had a chain link fence, and listen to this. I think it was a 5-foot chain link fence in the outfield.
My gosh.
You're waiting for a lawsuit. That's just so dangerous. And then we just had these bleachers. We had a set of bleachers behind home plate. No chairbacks, nothing like that. We had a set of bleachers down the first base line, the third base line, and we had this press box. And it was in between the bleachers behind home plate and the bleachers down the first base line. And it was a concrete block building that had 2 spaces with wooden, like plywood things that you would raise up and latch, sort of like a barn door. And it would seat about 8 people. Every high school in Lexington has a much better facility than Kentucky had at that time. But, it's like I had just come from Mississippi State, which had a beautiful facility. Even in 1978, they had a tremendous facility. And I saw it as an opportunity. I didn't really complain about it. I told people about it because I wanted to be better, but I saw it as an opportunity to grow. And just little by little, we made it better. And by the time I left, it looked like a sort of a mini Wrigley Field with our right field fence was really short, and so it was sort of a combination of Wrigley and Fenway. Only the short porch was at right field instead of left field. But yeah, I began sharing that vision with my players early on, and I said, "You guys are laying the groundwork, man. The way you're winning, you're helping yourselves, of course, because it's fun to win, but you're also paving the path for all the players that are going to come behind you or ahead of you. And they're going to benefit from what you guys are doing because, I can't do this. I can't change things here unless you guys buy in and play well and have fun doing it." And they did. And so, now, we moved from that facility about 2 blocks away to this incredible, I call it a mini major league facility. It's incredible. It's just beautiful. Turf field, chairback seats, incredible press box, locker rooms, major league. I'm not recruiting right now, but I'm just telling you, there's a big difference between what they have now. And I will say that Nick Mingione, the head coach there now, he does not take anything for granted. He appreciates what he has, and we often talk about the difference. And but he's just doing a fabulous job with the setup.
I was reading in one of those early chapters. I think it was your first base chapter. You broke them into first base, second base, third base, home. So good. Which as a pitcher, most of my hitters got to visit all of those. So it worked out really well. So it was a gift that I had, Coach, of making guys' career. I helped a lot of careers. You talk about the horse barn and the stalls. So you needed to practice undercover. There were no indoor facilities back then. It just didn't exist. What did you learn? So tell us a little bit about practicing in the horse barn, and you converted stalls, right?
Yes.
What did you learn then that made you better later?
Yeah, I learned, first of all, how to ask people for help.
That's
because
good.
we had no place to work out. There was an old gym that Adolph Rupp first started coaching in, gosh, I don't know, back in the 30s, I guess. And it was so dark. I mean, guys couldn't see. They could, a pitcher would overpower a catcher because the catcher just couldn't see the ball.
Yeah.
So, you know, I went to my athletic director and I said, we need better lighting. We need a place to work out inside. And he said, well, what's wrong with Alumni Gym? And I said, Mr. Hagan, they can't see the ball. It's dark in there. And he said, well, they'll just make them better hitters, But he's a basketball guy.
That's right. That's right.
He's a little different. So Frank Ham, an assistant athletic director, said, hey, you're looking for a place to practice inside. Call Tattersall's facility. They have all these horse barns, and they had a sales pavilion where they would bring the horses and people would auction, go through the auction process to buy horses. And so this area was about, I would say, 16 feet wide. And so we were able to put a batting cage in that dirt area where they sold horses. They let us build mounds in there. We had to tear them down a couple of times when they would have a horse sale and build them back. And John Butler, my assistant coach, and myself, we did it all. We tore the mounds down, built the mounds back. But, we were so excited because my pitchers are getting to throw off a dirt mound.
That's right.
January, in Kentucky, that's a big deal. And in February. So we had a place to work out. We were excited about it. But this is what the players always talk about, Mike, when they come back for, reunions and stuff. So for conditioning, we'd go back in the stall area and we would do base running drills and sprinting in those dry, dusty horse stalls that had, horse manure spread around where it hadn't been cleaned up yet. And my players talk about the greatest dust boogers I ever had was when we would work out in Tattersalls.
That I think though plays into, so you show up, the most losses they've ever had, and then you begin to build something. Wins begin to follow. This winning culture begins to be developed. Why do you think those days were so transformative for you as a leader in becoming who God created you to be, that you wouldn't have been who you ended up being without the horse barn, without the stalls, with the dust boogers that went on not only for the players but for the coaches? Why do you think that made you better and made the team better and helped build the culture they have today?
Well, I said something and I just thought about this again, is I was thankful to have a place to work at. And I think gratitude, I don't know, I can't remember whether I think it's Peter, it says love covers a multitude of sins.
That's right.
Well, gratitude helps too. And gratitude keeps you from complaining and being bitter. If you're thankful for what you have instead of what you don't have, or instead of complaining about what you don't have, you're going to be a happier person. I tell people all the time, I'm happier when I'm thankful. But Mike, as you were asking that question, my mind raced back to my playing career. And, I didn't make it to the big leagues, but I made it to AAA. And I loved the game. And I was passionate about the game, and it broke my heart when I had to give the game up. But when I started coaching, I started loving the players who play the game. And what a transformation. I mean, it was like, oh man, and then I was able to look back and sort of pick out which coaches loved me and helped me.
Yeah.
That's why they went that extra mile for me, because they really cared, and that was back in the 60s when, every coach acted a little bit like John Wayne, you know. So, you know, I look back and saw those guys, hey, they really cared about me. That's why they coached. You know, they love the game, but they love working with the players and seeing them improve and seeing them grow as a young man.
You know, you talk in Second Base in the book. Here you are, this young, aspiring coach. You come in, there's 10 teams in the league. You're the worst in facilities. You're the worst in pay. You and your assistants have an off-season part-time job to help make ends meet, make extra money. And you're walking in a league with Skip Bertman, who's still a legend from LSU, and Hal Baird at Auburn, and Ron Polk at Mississippi State. I mean, you're walking in a league of legends. And I'm sure it was super easy. And you talk about this a little bit in the book of comparing yourself.
No doubt.
And trying to be them. So every coach on here has a coaching Mount Rushmore of people they want to be and people they follow on Twitter or people they follow on Instagram or wherever they're, YouTube. How did you learn to be Keith Madison? How in the world did that process happen when you went, I got to find my voice? What would you say?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Mike, when I first got to Kentucky, I'd just come from Mississippi State. And I don't know if you remember this, but Ron Polk used to do his infield, pregame infield to the tune of Sweet Georgia Brown. And he started that when he coached at Georgia Southern, and he used orange baseballs. And it was, fans would come to watch them take infield, and it was entertaining. And he just did infield in a different way. It was snazzy, it was upbeat, and that was a new thing. And so at the beginning, I brought that to Kentucky, and I thought, but you know what? It wasn't the same with me. And I think just from that simple pregame infield philosophy sort of helped me to see, hey, you are not Ron Polk. You're not Skip Bertman. You're not even Bozo the Clown. You got to yourself. And so we just started doing things differently, and you have to coach with the gifts that God has given That's you. Good. And, I could watch you work with pitchers, and I might say, man, I wish I could communicate with my pitchers like Mike does. But I can't, because you have a special gift that I don't have. Now, my gift might be somewhere else, and the hard thing for coaches sometimes is because on YouTube and on Twitter and all social media, you see these really good coaches do a fabulous job of teaching a skill. It may be catching, it may be, hitting or whatever. And you think, man, those guys are awesome. I'm not like that. Well, maybe you're not like that in that area, but maybe in another area you're even better.
Good.
And so you have to dig deep and ask God to help you to use the gifts that He's given you and make sure that you know what those are. And then where you don't have a strength, you need to find an assistant coach that does. When I first got to Kentucky, I was a pitching guy, and I loved spending time in the bullpen working with pitchers. I love talking to those guys and, coaching them up. But I got 2 hits in 5 years as a minor league player. Those guys aren't going to listen to me. So I hired an assistant coach that was really good at teaching hitting and base running and outfield play, the things that an area where God had gifted him. So we have to find people that can be a strength in our week.
Which means you got to be confident in who you are. Because if you're not confident in who you are, you're not going to get the good ones.
Exactly.
You're not going to get those good ones. Yeah. Because you think of the guys that came through Ron Polk. How many great assistants did he have through the years that went on to be great head coaches? What made him so unique that guys wanted to work for him, even though they were an aspiring head coach, but they knew they wanted to work for him? What was it that he did that made you want to be in his program for whatever time you had there?
Yeah, I think his knowledge, number one, and also he had a type of charisma that that he probably didn't even know he had, and it was a confidence of knowing that his team was going to be the best prepared team, and his players picked up on that. And because of his detail in practice, like in the fall, we would spend 3 weeks in base running at first base.
Unbelievable.
So, the juniors and seniors would spend 3 or 4 years of spending all that time listening about the lead at first base and all that stuff. And he was just a brilliant baseball mind. So consequently, his players, when they would get on the bus and, to go play another team, it's like, we know this stuff.
Yep.
We're not going to get beat because we're more prepared than the other team. So that's a gift that he had. And I think young coaches like me went there to learn. And that sounds crazy because I spent 5 years in the minor leagues around professional people, but I didn't learn the details about baseball until I got around Ron Polk. And his organizational skills are beyond anything that most coaches have even come close to. I mean, for instance, he would, we'd get through with practice and we'd be leaving for a road trip, and he would say, "Fellas, be on the bus at 2:49 tomorrow afternoon." And this went on for weeks, and finally I got up enough nerve. I said, "Coach, why do you tell us to be on the bus at 2:49 or 1:31 or 1:33? What is that?" He said, "You're asking me about it, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "They don't forget." He said, "If you say, 3 o'clock, it's just might go in one ear and out the other."
Yeah.
So he just had these little
How about that?
tiny nuances about his coaching style that were impactful. And he radiated confidence, and that bled over to the team.
You hit in the book, I thought was really good. And I don't think I'd ever read them before. Henry Nouwen's Lies, that every person is going to have to battle. I know what I am, what I do. I am what I have. I am what others say or think of me. I am nothing more than my worst moment. And you were talking about that player just a second ago. And I'm nothing more than my worst moment. Why does every person, no matter how confident they may look with that hat on in the dugout or that corner office chair, why does everybody have to battle those lies? And how did those lies affect you as not only a leader, but even as a husband and a father?
Yeah. I mean, those lies, like you said, they attack everybody at one time or another. And Satan is he's the head honcho when it comes to lying. He will lie to you and tell you that you're not, when you play against a great team, you're not the coach he is. Well, he may be better in some areas, but you might be better in other areas, and those other areas might win that game for you today. You just can't believe those lies. You've got to gain as much knowledge as you can and hone your skills as much as possible as a coach or a leader, and then trust God that he's going to use those gifts, the knowledge and the skills you have to be successful.
Yep.
But the lies will beat you down. And I'm so thankful that I didn't end my career buying into those lies. I ended my career moving on to something else that I thought was positive. But it's a struggle. I mean, we all battle it. It's, bottom line, it's called sin. And then when we kind of give in to sin, then we start buying into the lies that Satan tells us. And at the beginning, these lies make sense, but they're also destructive.
Yep.
And you just don't want to be a part of that. And you want to, as soon as you can, as soon as you hear that in your mind, you can't do this, or you're not this, or you're not as good as this person. You got to get that out of your mind and just thank God for who he created you to be.
Yeah, because you never live out your full you if you're buying into all that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That is so good.
Yeah, it's very destructive. So we just, first of all, another way to kind of dispel those lies, first of all, you go to God with them and say, I know you created me for a purpose. And I feel like I know what that purpose is. That's to lead young men, or to lead this business, or whatever it is. And I don't want these thoughts I'm having to get in the way. Would you help me manage that? Would you help me get rid of those and help me to follow you more closely and to be who you created me to be? And also, Mike, this is very important. Surround yourself with other people who believe.
Yeah.
The greatest gift, besides maybe sharing the gospel with a player, the greatest gift that a coach can give a player is believing in him.
Yep.
I mean, I can look back right now, Mike, and I can name coach after coach, manager after manager who believed in me. I can also go back and name coaches who didn't believe in me,
right.
and I knew it. And that's tough. But man, when you get a coach that believes in you, you can do more than you think you can do.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's so funny. You think about that, and that's something we can all do, right? I mean, we have the ability to believe in people and to call out. I was talking to a group of coaches this morning, call out things in them that may never affect our field, may never affect the field, but it genuinely will affect the rest of their lives, that you see something and call out something in them. And I think it's I watch you with those other coaches on Monday, and I think you do a great job speaking life into coaches, both from here's what I didn't do right to, boy, if I was ever to do it again, I would want to do this. So powerful. But every coach is going to get presented opportunities to make tough decisions. Why does every coach need to know you're not always going to get it right? You do a whole thing on decisions, and it's so good. And every leader feels it. I was telling a story today of making a bad hire, right? We're all going to do that. Why do we need to know in advance you're not going to be 100 for 100? Why is that important to know?
Yeah, it's important to know because it will eat away at you thinking that you're not enough or you're not good enough. And, we read all these great things that John Wooden did and the relationship he had with his players and the respect they had for him. If you had the opportunity, and if I had the opportunity to sit on that front porch with John Wooden and glean some wisdom from him, and if we ask him the question that you asked, he would tell you, I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But what we hear about because of his championships is the way he sort of rescued Bill Walton. And you know the story when Bill Walton said, hey, Coach, I can't believe you're making us wear our uniforms this way, our hair this way, and all that stuff. And Coach Wooden said, well, Bill, it's been really good to have you on the team, and I wish you good luck. That worked. Bill Walton, the light came on.
Yep.
And he saw what he was going to be losing. But, there were probably other times when Coach Wooden challenged players and they said, see you, Coach.
See you. That's right.
But you don't hear about those stories. The same with Augie Garrido or Ron Polk or Hal Baird or Skip Bertman. Listen to Skip Bertman talk about Joey Bell. That I know he grieved over that because of all the players he ever coached, Bell might have been he was probably one of the top 3 talents, but Skip couldn't, he had to let him go because he was a distraction on the team. And, so as great as coaches are, none of them are perfect. They all make mistakes. And sometimes when we make a mistake, we feel like we're the only coach in the world that's ever done anything that dumb.
Yep.
But we're not.
Well, you tell a great story in the book of one of your best pitchers you ever had at Kentucky. You knew he was over his limit. You knew he was out of gas. You knew that it was time to go get him, and you go out, and he did what pitchers often do. They talk you out of it. Coach, I'm not giving up the ball. I'm good. Catcher agrees, and then he gets banged right after that, and you lose the game. Did you at that moment beat yourself up?
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the first thought that came to my mind is I'm supposed to be the leader. Joe isn't the leader of this program. I'm supposed to make the decision, and I let him make the decision. And pitchers, I had this relationship with my pitchers, I believe, where, I would hear them out. I would listen to them because I didn't know how they felt. But boy, the great competitors, they do not want to give in. Mm-hmm. And Joe Blanton was a great competitor, but he was in one hitter too long. And it cost us a win, and it cost him from probably remembering that as perhaps the greatest game in his life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we all make those mistakes. If I had that to do over again, I mean, he's out there. But you know what could have happened? I could have brought in a reliever, and he could have given up that home run.
Exactly.
So I think we need to learn from our mistakes, but we don't need to second guess and beat ourselves up too badly. It took me a couple of days to get over that, but I did get over it.
It's part of it. We're going to make right ones. We're going to make wrong ones. We learn from them. We move on. And the next one's a big deal. You talked to, and the second to the last question, about the weight of leadership, the weight that coaches carry, how it affects their families, how it affects just their livelihood and their lifestyles. What would you encourage every coach to do with the weight of leadership that they have in keeping their priorities in the right places? Because there is a lot that comes with coaching, and it's getting harder. It's getting harder to be a high school coach. It's getting harder to be a college coach, getting harder to be a minor league coach now.
I agree.
What would you tell them about making sure they do the best they can about keeping their priorities in order?
Yeah, that weight can disable you. It can take away the clarity of your thoughts, and it can take away your ability to make good decisions. I've carried that weight. And coaches nowadays at the college level, it's NIL, it's transfer portal. At the high school level, it seems like, parents are more involved. And then there's that tension sometimes, not always, but the tension sometimes between the high school program and the travel team that players are going to play on. And there's a lot of challenges in coaching today, and it does weigh you down. And this is one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I don't want to make it sound easy. It may be easier for some than others, but you have to let go of that weight. I wrote a short devotional this morning, and it was a sort of a Christmas devotional about how Jesus came into this world and he took on human flesh. But God's mission for him was not to be this beautiful baby that we celebrate on Christmas, but to be a man, fully God, able and willing to take that weight from us. Not only to take the weight from us, but to take our sins and carry them for us, because he is so much more able to do that than we are. The hard thing, Mike, is for me to give that weight up. There's always that question. Well, how do you do that? Man, that's difficult. First of all, you have to be ready to give it up.
That's right.
And you have to surrender. and not many people want to surrender. Coaches definitely don't want to surrender. But when you're carrying a weight that you can't carry and you can't go any further, you're going to give it up one way or the other. It's either going to destroy your career, maybe even your family, or if you give it to Christ, who said, I'll take it from you. I'll carry it for you. He meant that. And so, I was thinking about this last night. There's so much going on in the world right now with war in the Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, all this stuff. But God is in control.
That's right.
I can't do anything about that. I can pray. That's the only thing I can do about those situations. But if God is in control of those situations, he's also very able to take care of mine and your situations with the weight that we carry. And I've experienced giving that to him, and it sounds easy, but boy, it's hard.
It is hard.
But I've experienced that, and the freedom and the peace that comes following is phenomenal.
Well, Coach, you built a Hall of Fame career as a leader there at Kentucky. But I believe your greatest legacy is going to be coaching coaches. I really do. I think that you have spent these years since retirement as a full-time coach of players to becoming a coach of coaches through your work at SCORE. And now I think through even what we do on Mondays, I think you coach coaches. But I think this book is going to be a ripple. This is going to be you're maximizing your influence with this book. What do you ultimately want your legacy to be for how you use this life that God gave you and how you used your gifts, talents, and abilities in the area of working with coaches? What do you want that legacy to be, Coach?
Wow, that's a great question. And what immediately popped into my mind is I want people to remember me as someone who loved people and loved God. And that's the greatest commandment. And I really do love people and love God. And but I can say that, but I have to show it. And so I think this book is, in its own way, is a little bit of me trying to express that boy, it's great. It's great to win ball games, and we should always play to win, compete like a son of a gun. But it's pretty empty if you don't love the people that you're coaching. Because I could ask most high school baseball coach, even college coaches, who won the College World Series 5 years ago? I don't know if they can answer. And that's supposed to be, for college baseball, that's the pinnacle. But you could ask them, hey, who helped change your life? Who poured into you? Who believed in you? Man, they're going to answer that question immediately. So which is more important?
That's right. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Coach Madison. It's good stuff, wasn't it? The statement he made at the very beginning of the book, we coach players, not games. Powerful. And if we can remember that we don't lead businesses, we lead people, it can change everything. It changes our approach. It changes our philosophies. It changes, at the end of the day, what really matters. And at the end of the day, businesses will never speak at your funeral. People will. People are the business. That no matter what outfit we may wear as a professional baseball scout, a leader of a company, a mayor of a community, the principal of a school, the president of a university, whatever outfit we may wear, we, at the end of the day, we lead people, not businesses, not teams. And that was the statement that, to me, set the tone for the book and set the tone for the interview. Thank you, Coach Madison, for joining us. in our next episode next week. In fact, the month of January, we're going to be releasing a new episode each week. After you go and order Coach Madison's book, you're going to want to go ahead and click and order the book by Brian Dodd, our next guest, on Games Leaders Play. Brian is a connoisseur of leadership. He is a builder of information and breaking down what matters. And I'm going to tell you, it is so full of one-liners, nuggets. It's outstanding. And so you're going to want to listen in next Monday. So I want you to do me a favor. To help me cap off a great time with Coach Madison and a kickoff to Brian Dodd, do me a favor and hit subscribe. Hit it in Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you consume this podcast. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. There are so many great ones that are coming out. You're not going to want to miss one. I'm telling you, it's going to be a great year. And if you want to leave a rating and review, we always would love it and would love to share it with our audience. Once again, thanks for joining us today. Now, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go love God. I want you to go love people. And let's go live sent. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Lynch with a Leader podcast with your host, Mike Linch. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help more people hear it by subscribing and leaving a review wherever you may be listening. For full episode notes and more spiritual leadership resources, visit MikeLynch.com.